and welcome back to Springheel's speed build. In this final episode we're going to actually run the mission and kind of play through it so that you can see what it looks like, and I'll describe some of the final steps I went through and some of the changes that I made due to testing. So the mission is already installed, but you can see there's a short little blurb there that describes what the mission is about. I did add a note about expert level difficulty being quite challenging, because that was some feedback I got back from my beta testers. I did test the map myself first before passing it off to beta testing, and noticed a few things I wanted to change. One thing was that the loot in that one central area, there was a little bit too much of it there, and the player was sort of forced to get some of the loot from that location, even on easy. So I took some of the loot from there and spread it around and put it other places so that the player had a chance to, at least on easy level, meet their loot goal. So I added the briefing there with a little bit of background about why the player is doing what they're doing. And the briefing ends with the phrase "a matter of hours," which is actually the title of the mission. I thought that had a nice double meaning, since the map was created in a matter of hours. The 3 different objectives. I did change the loot objective slightly for normal so that it became a little easier. And I added a restriction on expert that there's no more than 2 knockouts, just to make it extra challenging. So I'm going to play this mission on hard, and we'll see how that goes. So some of the things, I'll try to point out some of the things I changed as I played through the map. One thing I changed that I wonder if a lot of mappers even know about this. AI have a spawn arg called rank, which is basically how important other AI think they are. When AI greet each other, there's a whole bunch of greetings they can choose from. And I had the boss of this map set as a thief, which is a low rank character. So the other guards in the map were saying things like, "Oh, keep your nose clean," and stuff to him, which didn't really suit him as the boss. So I had to give him a higher rank of 4 so that they now treat him with respect if they happen to greet him. Now you notice that I changed the ambient sounds in the map. I was having too many places where you couldn't hear the sound and couldn't space them out properly, so I just set the one that I had put in the living quarters and made it global. So it's now over the whole map. Those pipes, I had another set of pipes there that I didn't like, so I just deleted the pipe and put in a couple extra pipes, left all the steam and sounds. And this machine had some spawn args where you could just turn it on and it would start moving and spinning and steaming, so I thought that was a nice way to add a little bit of interest to the starting location. So here we go. One of the things I found was that the map was a little bit more challenging maybe than I had realized. So I changed the radius of the torch so that it doesn't go quite as far, because I found that I was getting caught quite often because of that torch. I also put a couple extra little things like this barrel here so that the player has some places to hide. Otherwise, if you get trapped in this little back alley here, there is nowhere to go. You could not escape. So I tried to give the players little places where they could find safe zones. I don't know if it's visible here, but I also I did wind up putting a faint ambient light by the windows, just so that they light up the geometry around them a little bit. Be careful, because that torch can shine through the gaps in the crates quite easily. So this is a bit of a danger zone. You have to kind of zip through this quickly, but then you've got a little bit of safety along the walls. Another bit of a danger zone there, and you've got to time it well so that the torch guard does not see you. So the area with the treasure there, if you remember, I set it so that the radius of the light was lower on the 2 lowest difficulties. I actually had to lower it even further Actually, I think the first time I had it lower only on normal difficulty. I actually had to make it even less on normal and make it smaller somewhat on this difficulty, hard as well, because it is a very challenging area to get into. You've got to wait until the two archers are looking the other way, or walking away from you, and you are quite visible if anyone happens to look in your direction. On challenging, it's extremely difficult. I'm not even sure you can do it without knocking out some of those guards. On hard difficulty here, you're mostly you're mostly hidden, except when the torch guy comes, although you can go into this corner here and be hidden. But even on expert, I don't think you're even totally hidden here. So it's very difficult to get into that other corner without the guards seeing you, or at least getting a glimpse. And again, on expert, I don't think you can do it without taking out at least one of the archers. If you can do it, then you have definitely earned some bragging rights, that's for sure. One of the things my beta testers noticed was those two metal stairs, prefabs that I imported, were not actually resting on the ground. One of the drawbacks of grouping is that you can't floor them without everything kind of flying apart. And when you do it manually, there's always the chance you're going to mess up.
Having a good night then?
Yeah.
You might notice there's a little discoloration on the floor there. One of the last things I did was just use the create decal button in Dark Radiant to create just a dirt decal on top of the entire floor with just a scattered dirt texture, and that just helps break up the repeating pattern of the original concrete texture a bit.
What was this?
So in this room I actually reduced the radius of that light just slightly, and I put some crates in a bucket there to help create a little bit of shadow by the door, because I was finding that area really difficult to transition through. Without being able to be in a little bit of shadow, it's really hard to open it without getting caught. Just going to wait for that guard to come in here, so I'm sure he's not going to sneak up behind. I'm glad I didn't decide to have that door locked, because this has turned out to be a rather tricky transition point, especially because it's very difficult to know whether you will be seen by the guard on the other side when you open it. And I'm glad I didn't waste any time actually setting that sink up so that the water worked. I'm glad that was just part of the original prefab, because you have to step right out into the light to do that, and I have my doubts that very many players are going to bother trying that. It's nice if they do, that it works,
I drink
but
horse
it wouldn't have been
piss
worth the
before I
effort
do
just for this map. So this corner right here, you can sort of duck in here, and if you move the bucket slightly, you have just a teeny tiny little shadow that you can crouch into here. Leaning helps. You lean into the shadow. And it's a good thing it's there, because I opened the door just as the boss was about to come through. So now he's kind of wondering what the heck's going on.
Oh, those shadows look just like a person.
Now, obviously my pickpocket skills are pretty rusty, because I could not get the key from this guy.
Drop that
I don't know if I
weapon.
bumped
Don't
into
move.
him or what happened there. looked like he didn't see me, so I guess maybe I did bump into him. He was certainly alerted, but then when he turns around, he doesn't seem to know where I am.
You can't hide forever, you know.
Which is good for me.
Come out into
And
the open,
I
you
spent this time very worried that he was going to alert the torch guard, because if the torch guard came in here, I was screwed. But as it was, this was a pretty decent place to hide.
Just make one little noise, and you're dead.
This guard just strolls in, doesn't seem very bothered by the fact that his friends are actively looking for someone.
Come out into the open, you villain.
So I put down that moss because I want to make a grab for that key somewhere during this search, or at least before he leaves. I did reduce the fob distance on that key to make it a little more challenging. Maybe I reduced it too much. Either that, or I'm just pretty crappy at pickpocketing these days. I do spend a lot more time designing than I do actually playing.
I bet you are right over there in those shadows. Damn. Where are the rest
So
of
he
them?
starts to leave, so I go in to make the grab, and once again, somehow, I managed to
Where's
alert
that
him.
sound coming from?
Now, when you alert a guard, when you make any kind of noise that he can detect, and a pickpocket happens within a second or two of that noise, the AI becomes far more likely to recognize that they've been pickpocketed. So you see him play that animation, and that actually boosts their level of suspicion that
Now I'm
something's
the one
wrong.
who's getting worked up over nothing.
It's kind of redundant here since I already bumped into him. It just occurs to me the reason that guard might be so nonchalant is that he's not on the same team as the other characters. Some of these AI were guards and some were thieves, and I think they're on different teams, which can affect how willing they are to help each other. Teams would be something I'd look at if this wasn't a speed build, but I can justify it easily by saying that some of these guys are just not that interested in being helpful. They are criminals and thugs, after all. So I added, I think, one or two other pieces of equipment here and there, a couple noise arrows, just so that there was something else for players to find. I think I only had one noise arrow before, and that was something that the players might be able to use. And in this area I added a little bit of extra loot to that table, just it seemed like a decent spot for there to be some loot, some gambling money, and it gives the player another little treat for coming through this area. By using characters with hoods, it gives the player a little bit of a reprieve, because the hoods actually do block the AI's vision. So this character with the hood there does not have very much peripheral vision.
Wish I had a good bottle with me.
One of the archers has a hood as
Keep me
well.
warm.
That's something else you can change with difficulty levels. If you want to make it easy on the player, you can have a head that's got a hood on it or an eye patch, and on expert levels you can give them unobscured vision.
Of course I'm not drunk. Not yet.
I don't know if this is an appropriate vocal set for Hideout of Thugs, but I love that voice too much not to use it. So I like the look of this area, but it's a little bit difficult to get to that chest without alerting the girl in the chair. Now, I could just knock her out, but I thought I would try something and see if stacking the crates next to the light would give enough shadow that I could sneak up to that chest.
What was that noise?
Oops. So I don't know if it's the angle of the crates or what it is, but they're just not making enough of a shadow.
Hey, what was that?
And it's awfully hard to move them without her noticing. Still might have been able to do it. I hadn't been interrupted by this guy. And because he's already been alerted, he's now a little bit more sensitive. Sensitive enough that that little glimpse he gets of me is enough to interrupt what he's doing.
Well, what was that?
I'm not totally lit, but I'm not in full shadow either, and he keeps getting just little tiny glimpses of me, enough to keep him suspicious. And the longer an AI looks in your direction, the more suspicious they get if you are not in full shadow. Their alert level builds as they get more information.
What was that?
And so finally, he gets enough to realize that, yep, there's somebody there, or something there.
Aha!
At
Now
this
I've
point,
got you.
I'm kind of trapped.
Hey,
So I just kind
I
of scramble
can't
for a
see.
flash bomb, look for a dark corner, dive into it.
When I find you,
Unfortunately,
I'm not afraid of
Mrs.
just
Badley
make one
Beat
little noise.
fire.
heads right for me.
Good.
Okay, plan B. That was satisfying. I also suppose I could have just done that to start with, but now it was personal. I probably could have met my loot goal without getting into that chest, but it's awfully hard to resist. I now feel like I should have put something in the other corner of the room just so that players had a reason to go a little further in, but it's not worth stopping the police for that. Those are the kinds of things you learn from and move on.
Might not be much, but it's still better than cleaning the sewers.
I like that there's
What
a little bit of
happened to the
a
lights?
reward for the player no matter what room they go into in this area. There's something to find. Oh, I didn't mention it earlier, but I did add a dummy door, a fake door, just to give the illusion that there was more to this area than where the player could go. It can give a nice sense that, I think it's right there, that the area is bigger than what the player actually experiences. And when there's no handle on it, that's the key, that it's really there for decoration.
What kind of fool breaks in here? Someone else has got to do.
I could knock this guy out pretty easily, but hey, they're going to be raided by the watch soon enough. Might as well leave them enough people so that they have a fighting chance. So the mission's essentially over. It's now a matter of just getting back out. So I wanted to recap a few of the more important lessons that maybe are takeaway lessons from this series. One is that always do your key areas first, so that you can cut things, some of the less important things, if you happen to run out of time or inspiration or energy or all three. Second thing is that things always take longer than you think they're going to take. I was aiming, remember, for 4 hours, and my actual build time was closer to 6. You really have to be able to say no, that this is enough, that I'm not going to do more than this, and it's really hard to do. Even here, where I was trying to get things in under 4 hours, I still couldn't help going back and adding a few things here and there, despite all the things that I did actually cut. This is a problem that actually kills mapping projects, where people just take on too much and they cannot learn to cut things. And some projects just never get completed because of this. You really have to be able to just set realistic goals, understand you can't do everything, and stick to your plan as much as possible. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, what I hope you take away from this is that you don't need months to create a fun, visually appealing dark mod mission. Even if you add in the time it took for testing and things like that, this still came in well under 10 hours, which is something that you could probably do in 2 or 3 weeks, even if your free time is fairly limited. So I hope this is something that has maybe demystified the experience of mapping for the dark mod and shown you just how quickly it can be done. I really recommend you try it. It's a very rewarding creative process. There's something special about getting to walk around inside an environment that you've created that is a special kind of thrill that I don't really get in a lot of the other kinds of art that I do. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found the series interesting, and I wish you happy mapping.